Hello, everyone. This is Joey Perleone, and this is my presentation for week 7 of my interview with the Fallout Creative Community. I actually interviewed Dan Kleberg, and I chose to go with this narrative route mainly because Dan had a lot of different anecdotes, and he did a lot of talking on different subjects and told a lot of stories. So I want to include as much of that as I can, and I wanted to avoid death by text. So I thought I'd go pretty minimalistic on the slides and just do a little bit of narration. Dan is a really, really nice guy. I met him a few years ago um, doing a short film festival here in town. I did my undergrad at film school, so I've been pretty involved with the creative aspect of this part of South Dakota. And as you can tell by the name of Dan's nonprofit, so is he. What his nonprofit does, or one of the things that they do, is he uses disabled, mentally disabled people in his short films and in his creative works. So it's very fascinating. And he's a very clever guy. All of his films, they always win tons of awards, and they're always so funny and so captivating, and they have so much heart. And that speaks to the man himself. He's got a big heart for what he does, and he's got a passion for the disabled community to help brighten their lives and to just give them a little piece of what everybody else takes for granted. Um, in fact, when I first met with Dan a couple weeks ago to do this interview, he started off by giving me a history of the Fallout Creative Community, and basically, it started with just him doing stuff with different disabled individuals, and the community kept growing, and they would do stuff, and he'd pay for it out of pocket, or people would just donate money, but it wasn't a formal nonprofit. It was just something he liked to do, and somebody told him, one of the guys that actually became one of his first board members, just happened to mention to him, you can get grant money for doing this just by forming a nonprofit. So he did all the research himself. He's formed the nonprofit himself. He did the first grant writing himself. And he was telling me that he, the first year, he only asked for $12,000 because he figured if I just take $1,000 for myself as an income a month, then it would give him time away from his business, his coffee shop business, to do more stuff with the community, and that alone would be worth it. But when the grant committee heard the proposal and heard everything that he's got going on and everything he's doing, they told him, "Hey, next year make sure you ask for more money." And he thought that was funny when he told me that story, because he said that never happens. People in a grant committee don't tell you to ask for more money; they usually tell you to ask for less. So he was one of the first times that they really ever say something like that, to ask for more money. So yeah, on this slide here, I think I've covered everything. Um, yeah, so we'll move on to the next one. Dan had a clear vision for his nonprofit before he even was formed or anything. Before the board of directors came together, Dan had already wrote the bylaws, so there was no way a governing body would be able to come in and change the direction of his nonprofit by writing bylaws that didn't fit with his mission objectives. So he wrote the bylaws himself. Um, his first board consisted of 5 members. They were chosen for their unique skills and what they brought to the table for advancement of the organization. And a lot of those initial board members were just people he consulted with when he was trying to start the nonprofit. I know I said that he did the research himself and he did it all himself, and he did, but he did, through conversations, have consult with people and ask questions to regulars that frequented his coffee shop. And some of them gave him great ideas and gave him great direction of what to do. So he said, would ask them, "Hey, you want to be on my board of directors?" And that's kind of how he got going. Was he just in an informal way would ask people to officially join his organization instead of just giving him nuggets of wisdom. Come on. I've already talked about this a little bit. The creative community was established prior to the nonprofit, and Dan said that he made acquiring board members an easier process. Um, Having a well-known reputation, that people already know what it is you do and what you're passionate about and what you care about prior to forming a profit made it a little easier for him to get serious people on his board of directors because they knew he was a serious guy and this wasn't something that he was just talking about and would never see it through. They knew he was the kind of guy that would see it through and was more than just talk. So it made it easier for him to get yeses from the right people because they didn't feel the need to play it safe. Dan has very strong ties to the community because of the film festivals and all the artsy stuff he's done. And he's a business owner. He's got a coffee shop. He's got a graphic design business that he does out of his home. Him and his wife are business partners. They manage real estate and rental properties here in Aberdeen, South Dakota, that his family owns. That he manages it, and I'm sure at some point he will inherit the properties outright. Um, he told me that the Fallout creative community is well known nationally for accepting people with disabilities. Now I don't know I didn't know exactly what he meant by that, and I should have followed up with another question, but I didn't get a whole lot of questions in. To be honest, Dan was rapid fire with just shooting out information, and I was just trying to keep up by writing notes. So I didn't get a whole lot of questions in, and every time I'd get a question in, it would take a long, involved story before we got anywhere near the answer to the particular question I asked. But he's a very creative guy. His brain works a little different than most people, so getting a straight answer out of Dan is not easy. Getting a very long, involved story out of Dan is super easy, actually. Okay, now he did tell me that they do try the Fallout creative community and a lot of the people that he helps and he assists. They travel together to different cities, different towns, and stuff. And I asked him, and I said, "Is that just at the state level, or do you travel to other states, other countries?" He said, "No, it's just at the state level because our funding is only from the state." Apparently, he said that getting funding from the national government is a whole nother bag of worms, a whole nother process, and he's gotten the state funding process down to a T. So he doesn't need any more money than he's given from the state every year. So he hasn't felt the need to upgrade for national funding. Okay, we did talk a little bit. We should have. I know, but like I said, he was rapid fire with the way he was giving out information. So at the end, I had all these notes that kind of went in all these different directions, and I had to kind of find the pieces of it that fit together. It's like putting a puzzle together. But we didn't talk a whole lot about what the board actually does, and I know that is something we should have. But I did ask him if the board met quarterly or monthly, and he said that they do meet monthly. I asked them if the board of directors had any sort of financial obligation, and he said no. He told me a lot of times when a board member leaves, he will replace the board member with somebody who fills a specific position. Like he needed to do something that had to do with writing up contracts. So a board member left, and the very next person that sat on that board happened to be a lawyer. because he needed legal advice. So that's what he's done a lot as far as selecting board members, is he's taken people that could give him what he needs at that particular time, putting them on the board. The board determines the schedule for the Fallout community. You tell me that. They travel around the state, interact with the residents of different communities. And they take pictures and they take videos and they document it in order for fundraising purposes. And the board handles all the fundraising purposes. Board diversity. He was a little cagey with me on this subject. I think he's never really thought, listen, Aberdeen, South Dakota has been a white man's and woman's world for a long time. People of color, it just seemed like they started arriving overnight about 5 years ago. When I first moved to Aberdeen 11 years ago, it was white people as far as the eye could see. So it was pretty boring coming from South Florida, the land of diversity, to nothing but white people. But the economy around here has been pretty good. The beef plant in Aberdeen has brought in a lot of people of color because beef plants in other parts of the country have closed down and people have come here looking for work. Now we got everybody here. We have a large Asian community. We have a large African American community, and Africans, not just African Americans, but Africans from Africa. We have a lot of refugees. So we are. Aberdeen is becoming a lot more diverse than it has been. But Dan's company's operated since 2008, so they're still kind of getting on the diversity train and trying to move in the right direction. But he says he doesn't actively seek diversity as a way to check some sort of metaphorical box. For him, the key to board diversity is to avoid redundancies. And I completely understand what he's saying. You're going to get diversity in one shape or another if you just avoid putting two people on the board that bring the same thing to the table, that offer the same thing. So whether that be culturally or through their work history or through their particular job or skill set, he likes to have everybody on the board to have a unique voice. So to me, that kind of says board diversity, even though he's not actively seeking, okay, I've got too many men, now I need to add some women to balance it out. He's not saying I've got too many white people, now I need people of color to balance it out. He's going for diversity of business acumen, really. So we'll see how that plays out in the future, if he'll continue to do things this way or if he'll open up spots for more people of color based on the fact that they have people of color. They might not bring something to the table business-wise that you can immediately identify, but you won't know exactly what having different types of people will bring to your board until you get them on the board and get them involved in the meetings and get different types of people to throw their input. And then you never really know what kind of positive change or positive direction they can bring to your organization. So me and Dan, we did talk a little bit about that. I didn't want to get preachy on him, and because he is a really nice guy, and he's got his reasons he does things. So I didn't want to end up in some sort of a political left versus right war. So I just, I was very subtle with some of my suggestions. They were all unwarranted. He's run a successful business, so I didn't want to be rude and seem like I'm throwing needless shade at him in any way. So, well, that's about it for my interview with Dan and my presentation. If you made it this far with my boring voice, I really appreciate it. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day.